Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast. And here we are again for another exciting episode with an amazing guest and a great friend. I'm so excited to have him on here today. He's going to help provide some motivation, inspiration, and education. This is Mr. Binhtri Vu, who is a highly accomplished martial artist holding a third-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with 24 years of training, as well as serving as a national-level judo coach with 22 years of experience. He is a globetrotting instructor, having taught, trained, and conducted seminars on 5 continents in 9 diverse cities, including Tokyo, Beijing, Barcelona, Athens, Madagascar, Mauritius, Jerusalem, Kenya, and Chile. In addition to his martial arts experience, Binhtri holds a master's degree in public administration and serves as a defensive consultant for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. He's also a valuable member of the LA County Assessor's Office, handling complex tax assessments, and has been teaching Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at Cal State University, LA since 2004, while sharing his knowledge of property tax law at Rio Hondo College. Binhtri, thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you, Jason. That sounds so much better when you say it live versus if I say it, right?
I mean, I have a little bit of a, radio voice, so it comes off, it sounds pretty good, but all of those accomplishments are yours. And it is, like I said, it's exciting to have these interviews and have this opportunity, if for anything else, especially today, to be able to bring an old friend on the show and catch up. It's been a little while since we've, talked, other than, of course, Facebook comments and seeing the dogs that you're adopting and, all the stuff that you're doing. But, we met way back, right? I think the very first time we met was when you shot photos at our karate school. I think you were with Photo Kicks at that time. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. So I worked with photo. Ow, Marbles, no. Oh yeah. So that's how we first met, was through Photo Kicks, and that opportunity was pretty interesting because my wife, Nancy, worked for Photo Kicks, and so it gave me an opportunity to travel all along the West Coast and meet tons of different people who own martial arts schools. So it was absolutely fascinating because I got to meet different people that tried that specialize in different martial arts, and it kind of opened my eyes out how we're all kind of related, yet have our own unique twist to how we train, how we teach, how we run our businesses, our values, and in terms of how do they run businesses. And then for me, that was fascinating because I'm always interested in other people, the things I do, the places I go. Me particularly, don't find it that interesting. It's just what I do. But I absolutely am fascinated about other people, how they operate, how they think, what they do, what type of group of people do they surround themselves with, their methodologies to overcome adversity. How do they learn? What is their thought process like, right? That to me is absolutely fascinating. And I apologize for Marbles jumping up and down. She is a brand new puppy. We adopted her in July. So she's brand new. She's absolutely fascinated about everything and anything.
Well, it's awesome to have a co-host today.
Yes.
And having Marbles here with us. So it's really cool, right? The martial arts industry, just all by itself, getting to visit all the different schools, all over the place. And like you said, so many people do things different. They have their own their own style of martial arts, their own style of teaching, their own style of how they run their business, the different cultures in all of the schools. But at the core, I think all martial artists, the goal is constant and never-ending improvement. I think that every martial artist is interested in learning and growing and adding to their arsenal so much more than maybe, the early years of martial arts, where some people were kind of stuck into one martial art and that was the end all be all. And people weren't really open to learning new things. But now everybody, I believe, if you're still growing, you're kind of checking the other things out and bringing that into the different schools. So you've got a chance to see that. And of course, as a martial artist yourself, having been a judo coach and also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, you see the different things and how it's changed. Before we dive into that, though, I love to ask every guest, and you kind of touched on this, what is your motivation behind having these connections? It sounds like just being fascinated with the different people, but what have you found has given you more motivation to continue on this path?
In terms of motivation, right? I try to surround myself with people who are infinitely smarter, faster, stronger, more motivated than I am to one, have something to look forward to, something to look in terms of like mentorship and friendship, right? With people who are just better than you overall, because no individual knows everything, right? I, for one, don't know everything by far. I've been fortunate to have traveled the world, meet tons of amazing people, but those are the folks that inspire me. Those that are able to use their platform, their resources to help other people. Instantly, in everything that I do serves a purpose. It's to serve other people. And what I found in my journey through quote unquote life, I'm essentially making it up as I go along because there's no map, there's no instruction manual, right? So I do the best I can with the resources that I have, and those resources are just other people. So I've been fortunate enough to so let's say, for instance, right, everyone from your typical school teacher to someone who's in the trades that does plumbing, that does framing work for a household, to billionaires. I have been fortunate to interact with and meet. And at the core value of all the folks, doesn't matter how much wealth you have, how much intelligence you have, it essentially boils down to being successful is serving other people. And it's pretty amazing. And most folks that I have met, right, are fairly humble, that are very successful, don't throw their weight around. They're not bragging. They are more than happy to share information with you, right? Simply because you asked. And by nature, I'm a very curious person. Like, I don't know if you could remember when my interactions with you, or if I ever spoke to you on the phone a few times, I was always picking your brain while I was at your gym. I asked, I picked your brain, your wife's brain, your brother's brain, different, your coach's brain, right? I'm constantly collecting information to, one, better myself, and two, help others. And for me, that is motivation to personally grow professionally, spiritually, and overall as a better human being, so that, one, I can serve better. And that, for me at least, brings me a lot of satisfaction. And I don't ask for anything much in return. Granted, I feel very blessed to be doing what I do and to be where I am at in life. I really can't ask for more. If I drop dead tomorrow, you know what? I did a lot. I'm okay with that. The good Lord has called me home.
Well, so listen, let's dive a little bit deeper into that, because, you have had the experience to, as you said, pick people's brain. What would you say are some of the top lessons going to the different schools, talking with the, successful people that you've been involved with? What are some of like the top things that you've been able to incorporate in your life? Because lots of people can go through life and collect information and ask questions, but what do you actually do with it? So is there anything that really stands out to you that where, like that aha moment where you're like, oh, wow, I learned this, and then like incorporated that in my life, and it changed everything?
I guess one of the main things that, or the similar themes that I see in successful people who run really good businesses, or all overall just pretty happy in life, is that, one, once they have an idea, they have a tendency to set goals. And once they have these set goals, they set a pathway to achieve these goals. So no huge monumental goal can be achieved in one day. So essentially, it takes multiple small steps to achieve those goals. And not only that, but instead of racking your brains over how to overcome an obstacle, seek help. It does not hurt to ask for help. And in some cultures and some folks, their mindset is, if I ask for help, it is a sign of weakness. It isn't a sign of weakness, because, one, nobody knows everything. And then not only that, but your time can be utilized for other goals that are more important versus overcoming a mundane task that you're trying to do yourself. You have to delegate in order to become, efficient with your time and being productive. So the main goal is that most folks I see that are successful have an idea. They're passionate about it. They have a set goal and they work towards those goals. I had a pretty interesting story where I had met the owner of, you probably have some of his products in your household. It's the owner of Feet Electric. He makes light bulbs. You'll see his products in Home Depot, Target, Costco. They're everywhere. He sells light bulbs, light fixtures, all kinds of stuff. So I randomly met this guy because I actually had to go inspect his yacht, right? So I went out to his yacht. This is in, I think, Marina del Rey. So this is gigantic 70-foot yacht. That's like millions of dollars, right? So I sat and I chatted with him, and I'm absolutely fascinated by his life story. And he tells me his entire life story within the first 10 to 15 minutes. Now, for whatever reason, people have a tendency to share that with me. I meet them and they'll tell me their whole life story within the first 10 minutes of meeting them. So he had an idea. And it wasn't new, right? He essentially told me his business started because, one, he was helping his father out, who had an apparel manufacturer. And he noticed that the sewing machines there, the light bulbs would always burn out. And he would ask, how much would it cost to replace a light bulb? And at the time, this is in the early 70s, he said it was $2 to $3 a light bulb, which is really expensive at the time. So he thought, well, I wonder if I could find another manufacturer that could make it. And he found one, I guess, in South Korea. This is before a lot of electronics were made in overseas in Taiwan and China and imported in. They didn't do that at the time. So he found a producer that could produce a light bulb for 10 cents. And he was like, oh my God, 10 cents. All right, I'll put an order in. So he put an order in, ordered the light bulbs, and he realized, well, maybe other people could use this service too. And so yeah, he outsourced the light bulbs to other companies. He advertised in local trade shows, right? That, hey, we offer wholesale light bulbs, and these are our prices. At that time, nobody posted their prices. So he posted his price, and he was flooded with orders. He was so flooded with orders that he couldn't keep up with them. He had manufacturers call him and say, hey, do you have a G24 base bulb? He's like, G24? Yes, we do. How many do you need? I need 100,000 bulbs. Okay, no problem. Hangs up. He tells the secretary, hey, can you call the manufacturer and see if they make G24 bulbs? She's like, okay. So he built this gigantic empire where he was in a position to buy out General Electric, their light bulb division. Crazy. And he was as humble as can be. And he was just more interested in what I did and the people I interacted with and the people I speak with. But he was super humble. He sat there in a shorts and t-shirt, and he kind of hung out and gave me some water, and we chatted for a half hour, even before I had a chance to look at his yacht.
That's awesome. What a cool story. Well, in the end, it isn't, finding a good business niche is all about finding a challenge or finding, a problem that people have, and then coming up with the proper solution at a reasonable rate. I mean, like, look at us as martial artists. We know that people want to get in shape. They want to learn how to feel safe. We want to teach them confidence and discipline and all the things. We have to figure out what is the challenge or problem that you're having, and then be able to show them how we can solve it, how we can overcome it, and add value to the long-term experience. In the end, that's what just about every business does. Now, as you were starting to talk about, the people that you've talked to and people that you've encountered over time, you said three things: finding a mentor, having passion, and setting goals, right?
Correct.
Something for me, having a mentor, I was very fortunate ever since I was a young teenager. When I wanted to open my school, I had mentors that fed me with information, fed me with the confidence to take, my dream of owning a martial arts school to the next level, helping me cut that learning curve, down by so much, because I could learn from the mistakes that they made. There was so much involved and then even later learning from a mentor that taught me how to run my business even more effectively. And you said that a lot of people view asking for help as a sign of weakness, especially in an industry, martial arts, that is so built upon confidence and everybody's supposed to know. And, asking for help is, not always easy, but, like you said, I mean, it has really helped me in so many ways to just reach out. And that's even the podcast, for me, just reaching out to different people and talking about different topics and going, I scratch my head a little bit, write these notes down a little, and it doesn't come right away. But over time, you're like, oh man, I remember I was talking to Binhtri and he told me the story, and like now it like the light bulb goes on, right? So my point again, mentors. Tell me about some of the people that have mentored you specifically in certain areas of your life?
Geez, where do I start? Because there's multiple stages. In terms of mentorship, I guess first off, I guess we'll start off at the very beginning, right? I mean, my dad was old school guy. He came to this country as an immigrant, typical immigrant story, right? So after the Vietnam War, fall of Saigon, country was overrun by communists. So throughout his entire life, he was, he was constantly in an environment where the country was protecting itself from invaders from the north. So he came to this country completely penniless. My mom too. She came as a foreign exchange student, but got stuck here because one, she couldn't go back to her home country because one, communists took over. So one of the tenets that my dad kind of taught me as a young kid was perseverance. So imagine if you and I today, we had Canadians come down from the north, invade us. We have to go to a completely different country in our current age now and learn a brand new language, learn a brand new skill, and learn how to acclimate to your environment, right? It's extremely difficult. So I have a lot of respect for folks who speak a second language, who came from a foreign country, who are immigrants, to work really hard here to make an honest living, right? To raise their families, right? And just to be productive members of society. So one of the first things my dad taught me was that, son, I quote this all the time, and even to this day, I'm 44 years old now, I'm still implementing lessons my dad taught me. It was like, son, if you're going to do something, do it right, and make sure that you do it right the first time or don't do it at all, because it's going to take you twice as long and twice as much money to do versus doing it right the first time. So if you get lazy, you try to take shortcuts, right? There are no shortcuts in life. You got to do things the right way, put in the work. And if you can't or don't know how to do it right, ask someone. That's okay. So I guess the first person would be my dad. So that's in terms of work ethic. He always tells me, hey, son, you got to work hard. All right. You got to put your work boots on one step at a time to move forward in life to essentially, succeed. But two, what was really important was family values, right? Inherent in any family. They essentially, the family core structure is very important because that's your base. Where you grew up from, how you're raised, your ethics, your morals, all those are entwined at a very young age, right? So if you have an adult that isn't quite all there yet, right? Generally speaking, the reason is your upbringing and your support systems when you were younger, right? So I was fortunate. My dad was always around. He's pretty busy, trying to earn a living to keep a roof over her head and, raise a family. But yeah, those are just some of the things that he taught me, is having a good work ethic, treating your family well and treating others well. So in terms of that in terms of the beginning, that's how, I was raised. But in terms of work ethic, right? I wasn't always the smartest guy, but I always liked the challenge. So one of the things that I kind of learned through the martial arts, and you probably experienced this yourself, is that learning how to overcome difficulties and learning to troubleshoot and problem solve, right? And having strong mental willpower to overcome these obstacles and slowly chip away at them to become successful. And, the meaning of success means different. I mean, it means different things to different people, right? For some people, It might be tons of wealth, maybe name recognition, right? For some people, hey, it's just getting up out of bed, right? And that's okay, right? Whatever path you're on, it's okay. As long as you're constantly moving forward and you're trying and putting in effort, that's better than 99% of the people who aren't doing it. So who else is there? Oh, yeah. So that's one of the things that my coach taught me a lot. My Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach, his name is Johnny Ramirez. I met him when he was, I think, 17 years old. And I started training when I was 19. So I'm 44 now. And one of the things that he kind of taught me was that he was a smaller guy, right? So it's a very typical story, very similar to the Helio Gracie story, right? He's a smaller guy. At that time, he was probably maybe, I think, 5'5", 5'6", maybe 120, 130-ish pounds. But I would watch him train and roll and just smash people. So, people that weighed 70, 80 pounds heavier than him. So I had watched him train with these two twin Samoan guys. These guys were over 330 pounds. So one guy was named Jacob, but I can't remember the other guy's name. Really nice guys. These guys are huge. When you saw them spar, it looked like two grizzly bears rolling with each other. And it turns out that they were they're the bodyguards for Eazy-E, the rapper.
Yeah.
So I watched my coach Johnny, who's tiny, sweep these guys, get on top, control them, and have his way with them. And to me, that seemed like magic. But these skill sets were totally achievable by consistent training. He had a really good coach and being dedicated to his craft. So some of the things I learned through the martial arts is problem-solving skills. The skills that I learned on the mat permeate through all aspects of my life, whether it's professionally, I'm at work, and I interact and deal with a lot of high-powered attorneys that are highly intelligent, and they're completely cutthroat. But I'm okay with that because I get to interact with them. And in my perception is that my interactions with them and how they try to cut my character while I'm in court or at the hearings is that they're not a 300-pound man trying to rip my head off or tear my limbs off. This is cake. This is a cakewalk. This is a walk in the park.
Right.
So yeah, it's funny. I'll have these guys come in and they'll try to catch me slipping in terms of knowing the tax code, right? Whether or not I'm following the law, if I'm not aware about certain things. I'm 100% confident in what I do. And it comes from experience. And again, you're not 300 pounds. You're not trying to rip my head off.
Right.
So this is easy. This is the fun part of my day.
That puts things in a little different perspective, right?
Right, for sure.
Someone trying to kill you with their words rather than kill you with their hands.
Exactly.
Earlier when you were first talking about the word success, I appreciate the fact that, you recognize that success can be different to every individual, right? And sometimes it's really hard because if you're in a specific industry, for example, like the martial arts, right? You see certain people doing certain things, and that is what defines success for a lot of people because of what they see. And it's just interesting how people gravitate towards what someone else does and what someone else wants before taking the time to think, okay, what's really important to me? And the reason I bring this up is because I can remember, starting my school, right? And having an idea of what success was when I started my school. And over time, that's changed so many times, right? Different phases of my life. When I started out, I was single. And then before too long, I was married. And then before too long, then I had children. And as my kids were growing up, when they were younger, it's very different now that they're 18 and 21, believe it or not. Those little guys
crazy.
Running around.
This still blows my mind. I remember Mason running around, right? And, in a t-shirt and his gi pants and his belt running around. Tiny little guy. And your daughter,
this little plastic sword.
Yep. And to think now he's what? You said 18?
18.
Yeah. Wow. That's blows my mind. Because in my mind, he's still a little kid, but that's not the case.
Well, and that's funny too, because like today's Halloween, right? And I looked at my wife and I said, isn't it kind of weird that it's Halloween and we're not doing any of the things that we used to? I mean, it's been a while actually, but I mean, like we're not doing any of the things. Again, my point being that things change over time. Things continue to evolve over time. What I thought success looked like at the beginning of my career is very different than what success looks like to me now. And I just think that it's easy for people to fall into the trap of, oh, I want to be like that person, or I want to be like that person. And it's great to have someone to look up to, and it's great to have good examples. But I mean, I think at some point you really just have to dive into your own goals and what you want, not looking at everyone else, because it could be so easy to get caught in the one-upmanship, or I want to do this because they do that, not necessarily because I really want to do it, if that makes any sense. So,
for sure,
I mean, even in my consulting days, I can remember, putting on the suit and playing the part, and I really enjoyed it, really loved it. But when I was younger, I was like, I'll never wear a suit. Like, wearing a suit is ridiculous. Like, who these guys get up there and they think they're all that, and then, you just go through these different phases. Again, that's my point, is that success can change over time. Your idea and your perception of what success is going to change over time. And the problem solving factor, That's something that business owners do on a daily basis. I mean,
Right.
you've got to constantly be problem solving, and I think that it's kind of lacking for some, and I'm trying not to totally identify the different millennials and all that stuff, right? But
I can't
but I
keep
mean,
up.
there's certain generations. Well, I'm reading a book that talks about the 5 different generations and how differently they think, and understanding how they think to work with. Because here I am, almost 50, but
Right.
I still have teenagers that work in my karate school. Well,
Right.
my generation and my way of thinking in my years are very different, but that doesn't mean that we can't come together and work together and achieve goals together. But I do think the problem solving is a little bit lacking, because, as we were talking about earlier, I mean, you got AI now. We have computers and Google that, like, you don't have to really think. You just hey Siri, ask it a question, and then bing, like, there it is. But what about things like your doorknob needs to be fixed? I guess you could just YouTube that, right? And you could YouTube just about anything and figure it out. I don't know. I mean, just if you were out in the middle of nowhere and had nothing to do, like, could you figure it out? Could you light a fire? Could you find water? Like, let's talk about basic, simple concepts. But anyway, I just think it's great to talk about all these things. The other thing you talked about was passion. And for me, martial arts has been a passion for, let's say 80% of my life, right? I'm going to be 50 and I started when I was 10. So, I mean, martial arts is everything to me, and everything about it to me. What is it that you find such great passion in what you do?
Much like yourself, I've been very passionate about martial arts since I was a little kid. I just remember as a kid watching, and everyone will ask, what inspired you to get started in martial arts, right? Well, I had a funny story about that. They will always ask, what is that one defining moment in your life where you decided to pursue quote unquote martial arts? It was when I watched the movie The Last Dragon.
You wanted the glow. You wanted the glow.
Exactly. I wanted the glow as a kid. I was like, oh my God. I mean, Bruce Leroy, he got the glow and he glowed yellow, right? So I'm like, okay, that's exactly what I want. And I, wanted to train martial arts. So where do I start so I can get the glow, right? So I asked my parents for a long time to train in martial arts, but in terms of hold on, Marbles, come here. Sorry, Jason. You can't yank on my sleeve. Here, have a seat. She's just yanking on my sleeve. I'm doing my best to stay focused. But so during that time, we had obviously a phone book. So I looked at the yellow pages. I looked through your local penny saver to find a martial arts school that I can train at, and didn't come through because, one, my parents, old school thinking, thought, there's no benefits to exercise. If you're exercising and doing martial arts, it means you're not studying. You're not studying hard enough, right? You need to get good grades in school so you can get a good job. I was like, but that looks like fun, and I want to do martial arts. So it wasn't until I was in college, and I finally had a chance to take a Taekwondo class, I believe, in college, because it was offered. Part of the curriculum. Like, yeah, look, Mom, I'm going to school. But I paid for a 1-credit unit, took Taekwondo, absolutely loved it. And then I had the idea in my mind, hey, all these martial arts are really fit and they're big and buff. So I need to get big and buff too. So I looked for a gym to buy some equipment. And it was a little tiny hole-in-the-wall gym in East LA that sold equipment, and they had a Muay Thai program. And I saw a little tiny ad on a 11.5 sheet of paper that said Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm like, oh, that's that Hoist Gracie stuff that I saw on TV. This Brazilian guy in pajamas just choking everybody, right? Took out a sumo wrestler and a karate guy and a Taekwondo guy. That must be the best martial art. So I signed up for a class, and the rest was history. That was 1999 for me. Nice. And the martial arts itself, in terms of why I'm passionate about it, has allowed me to do everything in my current life now. I met my wife because of training martial arts. She was a friend of my coach's, right? Met my wife, had opportunities to meet amazing people like yourself, like your brother, like, Mr. Ishisaka, right? Your coach. I got to travel the world. It sent me to England, right, for about 2 weeks just to photograph and meet martial artists. I got to train there, and it kind of planted the seed where I love meeting new people. I love learning new things. So I traveled across the globe because opportunities presented itself. And as for myself, I'm not a world champion. I don't have hundreds of gold medals. I don't have any championship titles, nothing. I'm just an average guy that can explain himself really well. And I collect a lot of information and people can relate to me. And that's one of the most important things is being relatable to the people that you serve. And over the years, much like you said, your motivation and your goals change. For me, at the beginning of my martial arts career, I wanted to be as best as I could to compete a lot. But at the end of the day, it's kind of a selfish endeavor. And you have to be selfish as a competitor to become successful. You have to pull from resources around you to build yourself up so you can compete at the highest level. Over the years, that's great and all, but then I found a lot more personal satisfaction in teaching other people and seeing them succeed. And the success that I find in other people, I find much more rewarding than anything I've ever done personally. Mm-hmm. So much more gratifying. And I found over the years that my perception of what people needed and what they valued is different. Especially when I started teaching at the university, right? So that's another thing. I got the job at Cal State LA to teach Jiu-Jitsu because I simply volunteered to help teach some of the groundwork in a Judo class. So the Judo instructor at the time was the activities director at Cal State LA. He goes, "Hey, Binhtri, I see that you like teaching. You're pretty good at it. Would you be interested in teaching a class here in the School of Kinesiology and Nutritional Science? We have some funding for additional classes." I was like, "Heck yeah, sign me up." Yeah, so that was in 2004. So you mean to tell me that you're going to pay me to teach and do things I love to do? Awesome. I do it for free. So that showing up on my resume looked amazing because, I teach at a quote unquote university. So that got me the job and the confidence to apply in my current position where I work now with the LA County Assessor's Office. It also allowed me to make a ton of connections through that simple act of teaching other college students. That's also I got involved with working with the LA County Sheriff's Department. And I'll tell you a story of that. It's pretty interesting where I had signed up for a baton class that I guess all the force instructors go through every 2 to 3 years. So I got invited. I signed up for it, and they don't generally take civilians, but I signed up as being an instructor at the university. So I'm in this room probably full of 60 to 80 other force instructors from multiple different departments. So LA County Sheriffs, Port Police, Airport Police, University Police, different departments from other counties came to get these certifications on learning how to use a baton, learning how to use a flashlight properly, how to use restraints. I'm like, sweet, I get hands-on information how to learn in terms of people who apply it every single day. Mm-hmm. So this class is for mainly instructors. And for me, I view myself as a civilian and a hobbyist, right? I'm not a professional athlete. I don't do this full time. So I go during the class and they're working baton work. And I took Kali and Eskrima before, right? So it's a Filipino knife and stick fighting. I took it for several months. And as the instructors were teaching the class, I realized they barely know what they're doing. Like, oh my goodness. I was like, wow. One of the exercises that they had us do is we took a baton and we used that as a barrier to push other people around. Okay, cool. Not a big deal. So we all line up, right? And then the job of the other person is to rotate and just kind of push and move you, right? So crowd control. So I had a guy, there's several people that go through me, and I realized as they're pushing, they're not using their body weight properly. They're not planting their feet. They're not grounding themselves. I'm like, these are basics that every martial artist learns and knows. So especially if you're a grappler. Then I had a guy who was 6'4", 280 pounds, come up to me, went, eh, and he bounced backwards. So I was like, there's a lot of work that needs to be done here, and there's not enough time, money, and resources to cover it. So I go through the entire program, and so they covered the baton work, and then they covered some basic ground control and restraint to, apply handcuffs. And I'm watching what they're doing, and I realize they're almost 10 to 20 years behind. So some of the things that they were teaching, Yeah, I didn't question it, but I made suggestions, right? Because I'm there as a participant. I'm there to observe and learn what they have to offer. But I made a comment like, from that position where what happened was that they had a person down on the ground, prone, arms stretched out, and they're trying to pin the person and get the arms behind their back and slap on handcuffs. And I go, do you think there's a better, more efficient way of doing that, possibly? And the instructor there was like, no, this is how we generally do it, and this is how we teach it. I'm like, well, what if I tell you that, one, you're really off balance and you can lose control, and your person applying the technique can seriously get hurt? He's like, I don't think that can happen. And by this time, a huge crowd started to circle around us. So I'm like, okay, is it okay if we demonstrate and I'll be in the bottom and you can be on top? And the guy was probably 240. He was a good sized guy. So he had me lay down, head turn, legs spread out, arms spread out, and he pins me, right? I'm like, okay, you ready? He's like, yes, ready. So I got up, knocked him over, and I grabbed his gun and I put it to his face. I go, this is exactly how long it's going to take. And I'm a recreational player. I'm not someone who's here, who has intent to hurt you. But one, some of the techniques that we're showing here could be improved. And then you can see the shock on everyone's face, right? They're like, oh, wow. So I was like, if you guys like, I know you guys have training sessions and stuff. I'll be more than happy to stop by to, contribute where I can. So I got to meet a lot of different people through that training session. So now I'm on a list where they have these, these rockdown events. So essentially, they get tons of new recruits that go through or about to graduate classes. So they essentially have a gauntlet of sorts where they go through obstacle courses, they go through different scenarios, and they need additional bodies, right? Trained professionals that can wear a red suit, that can grapple with them, that can do mild kickboxing with them. And these are recruits that only have 6 months of training in. So these are the folks that are out there on the streets doing the job of a law enforcement officer with 6 months of training. It is extremely difficult job. And the county and such departments don't have the time, energy, resources to fully equip, our law enforcement officers. I'm pro law enforcement all day long. I work with them all day long. My teammates, lots of them are in law enforcement, but they have to take time and energy out of their own time to train themselves. They have to, because the department won't pay for it, and they can't risk them getting injured on the job. So I get that. But I'm thinking, I'm a recreational guy. I train 2-3 times a week, right? I have fun. I consider it a win if I break a sweat and learn something new. But these guys are on the street putting their lives on the line, and they don't have the school or the tools or resources to defend themselves, right? So that bothers me a lot. But I volunteer when I can, and I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah. Well, what a great way to take what you learned in martial arts and in your experience as a martial artist and help serve your community at a higher level. I mean, I've heard this type of story, and I've heard many people that have this opportunity, and just how rewarding that is to be able to give back. So I think that's awesome that you do it. Now that's the Superman part of you, the martial artist on this side. Let's talk about the Clark Kent side, where you actually have a day job, right? Tell me more about what you do in your day job, because it's not a topic that everybody loves to hear about.
Oh yeah, for sure. So let me put on my Clark Kent glasses so that I blend in now. All right, there you go. So my day job is I work with the LA County Assessor's office. So our office, like any county agency, nobody really knows about, and they only contact us is if you have a problem. So in the state of California, if you own property, if you own a business, you will essentially contact our office at one point in time. So what I do now is that I work in the personal property division, and specifically in the marine and aircraft division. So I'm responsible for things that float or fly. So essentially rich people's toys. So the way it works is that you pay a property tax on these items, right? Whether you own a boat, plane, a manufactured home, real property, you own a business, a manufacturing plant. I've done everything from your typical mom and pop donut shop to billion-dollar corporations. A few years back, we had, you remember when Apple paid $1 billion to Dr. Dre for Beats?
Yep.
Yeah, that file came across my desk the next day. I also did the Playboy Mansion at one time. Went there to visit and audit paperwork there. I've done other corporations like Google, Facebook, Starbucks, Coffee Bean, Dole. The list goes on and on, like H&M. So from every manufacturing standpoint or retail sales, right, I've essentially come across. Because with LA County themselves, they generate about their budget per year is about $37 billion. And LA County, our office contributes to about 90% of that. And most of that revenue comes from real property taxes. So where I'm at now, I mainly deal with, people's toys. Just I go out to the marina. I get to see people's nice yachts and their boats. I interact with their accountants and their CPAs because when folks can afford these things, they have people that protect their interest in those assets, right? So what these property taxes do is that it contributes towards local infrastructure. It pays for civil servants like myself, your local police department, your fire station. It pays for the upkeep of public buildings and roads. And those taxes are important. So now when you have a property tax bill that you don't agree with, you can appeal it. And my position here is that I essentially look after the county's interests in terms of protecting our valuation on these assets. So when you have a tax attorney or accountant that essentially their job is to protect the interests of their client, they want to save them as much money as possible. So some of them are great and honest. They point out things that are legit, and other people lie, cheat, and steal so they can make a buck. My job is to keep that money in local schools and local infrastructure. It's really important. A good case of this is that do you know the San Francisco up north, there is a stadium. I forget which stadium it is. But what happens, there's this very particular tax case where the attorneys won and the county had to give back millions of dollars, right, to the owners of the stadium, so that it came out of local schools, local colleges, local school districts, and it was an obscene amount of money because these attorneys essentially said that, oh yeah, our clients are not responsible for this tax bill. And it was a pretty interesting case law. So I'm constantly going through tax laws, dealing with attorneys and accountants, and fighting them tooth and nail to protect the interests of the county. So our office covers a lot of different avenues of business. Like I mentioned earlier, real property. So if you own a home, you own a commercial building, you pay property taxes on that, and our office takes care of that. You own a business, a yacht, a plane, mobile homes. They all go through our office. So I've been doing this now for about, I want to say 17 years. And it's the one occupation that the general public dislikes more than law enforcement is the tax man.
This is all true.
Yeah,
this is all true.
It's a dirty job, quote unquote, but somebody's got to do it, and someone's got to do it well. And that might as well be me because I'm pretty good at what I do, and it's been pretty interesting because it gives you a deep insight in terms of how businesses work, how they operate in the county, and the economic and social factors that affect multiple businesses. So whether you're doing import-export, you're making donuts, or you are making little pipe fittings, right, for faucets. Those are all manufactured in LA County. Another story is one time I actually wandered into a commercial area. It was a building, and it was completely, there's no signs, no logos, no signage outside whatsoever. So I walk in, and a security guard immediately stops me, and he was armed. I was like, whoa, what's going on? Long story short, apparently they were making the wiring harnesses for the Black Hawk helicopters, and there's all these little old ladies, right? They have all these pegboards, and they're just running wires through these pegboards to make these wiring harnesses. That's made right here in LA County. And another time, I walked into an aluminum foundry where they're melting gigantic blocks of aluminum, and they were making this is way back during, I guess, the early 2000s, but they were making armor plating for the Humvees during the Operation Desert Storm. So all that stuff is made locally here. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, it's awesome to hear a little bit. Awesome to hear about the Clark Kent day job. But I think the the Superman job of wearing pajamas and walking around barefoot is probably the more exciting part of your day. Now, as we start to wrap up here, by the way, if anybody is watching here live and you have any questions, please drop your questions in the comments, and we would love to answer any of your questions. And of course, by the way, if you're watching now, whether it's live or you're watching a replay, do me a favor, go to YouTube, subscribe to Master Motivation Podcast, and share this video. So my last question to you, Binhtri, is what advice would you give to people out there that are lacking motivation or they're lacking some inspiration? What is your best advice for them?
I think we all go through different phases throughout the day in terms of motivation and trying to achieve the things that we want to achieve. Is that one, seek a mentor. Find somebody that you respect, that you admire, and simply ask them for advice. Hey, I'm stuck in this rut. I'm in a plateau. What can I do to better myself? And then be open and honest in terms of, hey, these are some of the things that I'm struggling with. What do you think would benefit me in terms of taking me to the next level? And being upfront with people. There's no way of skirting around that, because you're not lying. You're essentially just stating that, hey, I'm having some problems. I need some advice. Will you be willing to help me? And I've done my best to mentor other people, other college students, and see them succeed very well. And it's simply because they reached out to me and they helped. So simply reaching out and asking for help. Get rid of the pride. It's okay if you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. Simply ask.
Right. Yep. Well, and as you said earlier, in my experience, just like yours, the people that have had the greatest level of success seem the most willing to help others get there, right? It's the ones that are struggling at the bottom that kind of like to hold everybody down with them. Right. But I have had so many people, and especially on the podcast, right? I'll talk to people that I might not really know all that well. They've had a huge level of success, and you just ask for a little bit of advice, a little bit of help, and they are more than willing to take their time to give it. And chances are, because they've received it from somebody else, it's kind of like a pay it forward type thing. So it definitely it never hurts to ask for a little help and a little advice.
For sure. And then another thing I wanted to mention is that for you to run your business, right, I want to give you props, because I have the utmost respect for guys that run schools full time to earn a living, to raise your family. It is extremely difficult to run a school, because you're dealing with so many personalities. You're the marketing guy, right? You're the instructor. You're the janitor. You're the psychologist, right? Yep. And you're playing the role of husband, brother, wife, uncle, therapist. And sometimes your student expects you to know everything, and you're the jack of all trades, but you provide a intrinsic benefit that cannot be valued, right? It's extremely valuable what you do, and I believe you don't get compensated enough. But I just wanted to give you props for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I grew up watching my father be self-employed, and I always thought to myself, I didn't want to do what he did, but I did kind of like the flexibility of being my own boss. Right. But over the years, I've just learned, it is tough being all the things, and just like asking a mentor to help you, having a team, in my school is the only way that I could have any level of success. First and foremost, my wife from the very beginning, as you know, was very involved, and now, my kids are involved in our businesses, but, the team that I've been able to, teach and bring up and help them to be a part of this, so that maybe one day, just like I looked at my father and said, hey, I want to be self-employed. I want to run my business. This is how, I learned a lot from him. Maybe they see me, and that's a dream or a goal that they could pursue on their own. Or maybe they look at it and say, hell no, I'm going to go work for somebody else, because I don't want to take on all that extra stress and pressure. But anyway, so Absolutely. Listen, hey, Binhtri, it's been awesome catching up. I mean, just catching up with you and Marbles today, just talking about some of the old times. It's funny, because when I talk to people that have known me a long time and watch my kids grow up and see, where I started and where we are today, right? It's great. And the relationships I think are the greatest part about all of it. Like you said, you know, what it doesn't really matter if it's the martial arts industry or just whatever you do. I mean, we met because you were the photographer, and here we are, right? And
right.
we can all learn from each other. We can all grow together, and you know, be a mentor and be a helper to other people.
For sure, absolutely.
Well, hey, well, thanks again. Appreciate you being on the show. And thank you to everybody that's watching. Once again, make sure to subscribe to the podcast and go and share the video. Binhtri, hang out for just a minute. We'll talk for a little bit before you go, but I want to wish everybody a happy Halloween. Have fun.
Happy Halloween, guys.
And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.